Well, welcome to Laketon Bethel. Hi to our video audience. It's always good to have you. My name is Sherwin. And here at Laketon Bethel, we have two services, one at 9 o'clock and one at 11 o'clock. And we have plenty of room. So if you want to come on in and visit us sometime, you are more than welcome to do so. Today, we are going to talk about deconstructing our faith, which is a theory that scares people, particularly the right wing of Christianity, scares them to death. The whole idea of deconstructing. Now, what I mean by deconstructing is taking your childhood beliefs and challenging them. Taking all the things that you were taught as a kid or that you perceived as a kid, putting them on the table and evaluating them. And then throw out the ones that don't work. It can be a very scary, painful process, but it's a good one. I've been thinking about this a lot lately because of this book that's come out, Child of the Plains. It's written by Carol Van Klompenberg. And Carol is a first cousin to my wife. She's Diane's first cousin. I haven't met her because Diane has like 80 cousins. But she wrote this book. She's, I think, a retired teacher living in Pella, Iowa now. But she wrote the book about growing up in Sioux County. And it was very interesting to me because I grew up in Sioux County. She talks about some of the deconstructing that people have to go through who grew up in that, because of all the Sunday rules and all the different things. She talks about how kids were discouraged from drinking soda from cans. They had to drink from bottles instead because otherwise the neighbors might think they were drinking beer. And they had all these little rules about Sunday. You go to church on Sunday morning, and then you come home, put your robe on, and take a nap, and then go back again on Sunday night, which, is kind of a bizarre way to spend Sunday. The two services, the evening service was first put in place so that farmers could come during harvest. It wasn't, intended to be both service thing, but that's what it got to. So Carol talks about deconstructing in that book. I really appreciated it. I can tell you lots of stories of my own deconstruction, but I'm not going to. I'm only going to tell you one right now. But we had a volunteer for the youth group, and I actually quit going to youth group because of this guy, but I was about 15, and he came in and he was a country gospel fan, and he taught us that rock and roll is of the devil. Now, he was quite persuasive. He told us that if we really wanted to please God, we needed to throw away our rock and roll records, set them on fire. They were records and 8-track tapes back then. Set them on fire. He convinced me of this. So I should go out and buy some Jesus music. And it was horrible. But I did it. Now, I didn't throw my collection away. I merely sold it. I'm a Hollander. I wasn't going to throw away perfectly good vinyl. So I sold it. I had the Beatles' White Album, Led Zeppelin 2, all the good stuff. And I sold it. Except for a few of my Stones albums. I kept those under my bed as a secret. But then I went to this gathering of kids. This one friend of mine, his parents were gone, but they had just bought a new stereo. And it was one of those big old console things, looks like a coffin on legs. And it has really good sound. And another one of my buddies said, I picked up a new album today. Let's put it on. And they did. And it was this album. A few of you old timers can remember this. Exile on Main Street. Yeah, Donna, you probably got it memorized today. It's a classic Stones album. That thing started playing, and I thought, this isn't evil. This is just good music. What is going on here? So I had to do some deconstructing. The next week, I bought most of my records back, except for Tommy James and the Shondells. Nobody buys that twice. And, I felt guilty about it for a while. And then I threw the guilt away. It was religious garbage. I need to get rid of it. Kurtz does a good job at picking up my garbage every week. but they charge a fee. Jesus takes your religious garbage away for free. So I want to ask you the question today, what religious garbage do you have? What do you need to deconstruct? One of the gals that I talk to regularly, she grew up as kind of a strict Catholic. And she says the hardest thing to deal with me about is the whole idea that you're saved by grace and not by merit. And she says she struggles with that. And I've seen people who've never been in a Catholic church struggle with that. It's just a common thing. Am I doing enough good to have God let me into heaven? And I said, no, you're not, because you can't. But she deals with this guilt all the time. Another one has tremendous guilt for things she's done in the past. One gal talked to me just in the last few months about multiple abortions she had as a teenager. And she's feeling really guilty about that. You need to deconstruct that. Guilt in the present people have for things they're not doing or that they are doing. That needs to be deconstructed too. See, the point of all this is that Jesus makes guilt obsolete. We don't have to carry that around anymore. So today we're going to look at Paul's letter to the Philippians as he addresses this. His letter to the Philippians, he was on death row, in prison in Rome, around the year AD 62. Now, Paul was the master of deconstruction. So listen for the word of the Lord as we read it. And that's about it, friends. Be glad in God. Then he says, I don't mind repeating what I've written in earlier letters, and I hope you don't mind hearing it again. Better safe than sorry, so here goes. He says this, be glad in God. Notice what God is doing in your life. He's working on you. Be glad of that. Look for the good. Look for the deconstruction of the religion that you were previously taught. And then Paul gets feisty and confrontational. Steer clear of the barking dogs, those religious busybodies, all bark and no bite. All they're interested in is appearances. Knife-happy circumcisers, I call them. The real believers are the ones the Spirit of God leads to work away at this ministry, filling the air with Christ's praise as we do it. We couldn't carry this off by our own efforts, and we know it, even though we can list what many might think are impressive credentials. See, so Paul is really insulting here because to a Jewish person, a dog is kind of like a crow or a vulture. It's a scavenger. They don't like them very much. They don't talk very highly of dogs. So to say those barking dogs, that's kind of an insult, but they're on a chain. And these are the people who use the Bible to get you to conform to what they think is the right way of life. And Paul contrasts that with the real believers who are the ones who are doing the work of Jesus, focusing on showing his love to the world. So if someone, that's the opposite of those who are trying to strap you down with guilt. If someone is using religion to make you feel guilty or feel afraid, they are an imposter. Let me repeat that. Somebody's using religion to scare you or to make you feel guilty. It's fake religion. All right? Now, here Paul lists his own pedigree. It's kind of humorous the way he does this. He says, you know my pedigree, a legitimate birth, circumcised on the 8th day, an Israelite from the elite tribe of Benjamin, a strict and devout adherent to God's law, a fiery defender of the purity of my religion, even to the point of persecuting the church, a meticulous observer of everything set down in God's law book. See, here's Paul talking about his old values. He was a Pharisee, which is like saying you're legalistic and hypocritical. And I've recited my creds every once in a while too, because they're good in the Reformed Church. I mean, I'm 100% Dutch, got a master's degree in 82, a doctorate in 2000. I've got nearly 40 years in as a pastor. That gets me in a lot of doors. And the education helps me figure things out. But all these creds don't help you a lick in your relationship with God. Not at all. They won't give you peace. And when it comes to saving your soul, all the creds in the world are useless. All the effort in the world is useless. Look how Paul continues this. The very credentials these people are waving around as something special, I'm tearing up and throwing out with the trash, along with everything else I used to take credit for. And why? Because of Christ. Yes, all the things I once thought were so important are gone from my life, compared to the high privilege of knowing Christ Jesus as my master firsthand. Everything I once thought I had going for me is insignificant. Dog dung. Now, can you say dog dung in church? Let's do it. We're going to say it. Comes from the Greek word skubala, one of my favorite Greek words, but it's only used once in the entire New Testament, and that's in this passage. It can mean garbage, but most often when it was used in secular Greek writings, it referred to raw sewage. Those folks didn't have running water or indoor plumbing, so you can imagine what they were used to was raw sewage. And Paul is saying here, get rid of thinking you're special because of this raw sewage. You got these religious creds. Paul was the master of radical deconstruction, and he regarded religious creds as dog dung. Now, you've all seen that. People walking around with their dogs with a little plastic bag full of poop. You know, you've all seen it from time to time. It happens. They walk in front of my house and they're cleaning it up, you know, and I say, look, just leave it. I appreciate the free fertilizer, you know, it's fine. But you see that all the time. Now just imagine that this little plastic bag of dog dung is your religious credentials. And you're walking up to Jesus and see, look how holy I am. That's what Paul is trying to teach here. You're not holy because you got a bag of dog dung. You don't want to be walking around with a pocket full of that either, because it won't give you peace with God. And there's no need, because Jesus has already given you peace with God. So Paul goes on here, I've dumped it all in the trash so that I could embrace Christ and be embraced by him. I didn't want some petty, inferior brand of righteousness that comes from keeping a list of rules when I could get the robust kind that comes from trusting Christ, God's righteousness. See, you can't have peace with God. You can't have salvation until you take that list of righteousness that you have and set it down. You don't have to prove how wonderful you are. You just set it down. You don't have to do that, because most of the credentials that you list, you know, aren't true anyway. Just picture walking up to Jesus with a backpack full of dog dung and saying, here, this is why you have to treat me right. But Jesus says, no, you leave that at the door. And then take him by the hand and come on in. Because as I've said many times, unless you are saved by grace, you are not saved. It's a fact. Paul goes on. I gave up all that inferior stuff so I could know Christ personally, experience his resurrection power, be a partner in his suffering, and go all the way with him to death itself. If there is any way to get in on the resurrection from the dead, I wanted to do it. See, if you want shalom, if you want peace with God, you can't work at it. This shalom that the Old Testament talks about, this righteousness, this peace with God, is only something that you can receive. Paul wrote this with this deep sense of joy, and he was on death row. He had this deep inner peace because he was trusting Jesus to save him. So in light of all this, let's all take out our trash. You know, we've all had religious bullies script us, to make us feel inferior. Some of you have talked about feeling bad because of the kind of movies you watch. That is scubala, dog dung. Put it in the trash. Some feel bad because of your sexual behavior or orientation. That is scubala, that is dog dung. Put it in the trash. Some of you feel bad because you're fat and you've got bad habits. That is scubala, that is dog dung. Put it in the trash. You are a beloved child of God even if you got the extra 50 pounds. Some of you feel bad because you don't look as good as you think you should. Again, scubala, put it in the trash. Feel bad because you don't live up to your parents' standards. That is scubala, put it in the trash. Some feel bad because you had a marriage or two fail. That is scubala, put it in the trash. What counts is trusting Jesus to save you. So watch for what he's going to do in your life. Now, I know for a fact that if I hadn't deconstructed, if I hadn't dumped some of my childhood beliefs, I would be an atheist today, or at very best, an agnostic. If I had hung on to everything that I'd been taught or that I thought I'd been taught, I wouldn't be a believer today. But my faith is doing all right because I've done a major deconstruction. I've dumped a lot of it. And that's a good thing. At least it worked for me. So if you want to do this, here's my suggestion for dumping things. Take your religious beliefs, what you have carried with you up to this point, and compare them in the light of the teachings of Jesus. Evaluate them in the light of the teachings of Jesus. Look at the Gospel of Luke or the Gospel of Matthew. Compare your beliefs to what's in there, and your beliefs that don't converge, dump them. And if that's difficult for you, come and see me. I'll help. Dump everything that you cannot back with the teachings of Jesus. And you will experience a season of growth and freedom unlike any other in your life. So, let me pray for you. Lord, my prayer is for everybody that heard my voice today, that they will begin a deconstruction campaign with you, that you'll help everyone, including me, to continually remove the religious garbage that seems to stick to us. Be with us as we do that, please. We need help because every one of us has misconceptions about you. So help us to peel those away. Amen. And to the video audience, as always, they asked me to tell you this too. Video audience, if you wish to support Laketon Bethel financially, just go to our website, laketonbethel.org, and there'll be instructions on there on how to do that. And as always, thanks for listening.